My dad used to bet on horses and dogs all the time, and now he could almost bet on some hamsters, because Hamster All-Stars is a racecourse building and betting game where hamsters get let loose, controlled by AI, and you bet on which of the two coloured teams is going to reach the finish line first. The trick to it all, though, is that they're racing the courses that you build, and this is primarily 90% of the game a course editor and builder. You start off with a couple of blocks, very simple, a start and finish, and the ability to build platforms and have walls that kind of drop away or something like that. And you start to, over time, get access to sloping tiles or different types of curves or hairpin bends and things like that. And you get this by betting on hamsters once you've run certain races. Each start line will have two little gates, one for the red team, one for the blue team, and there'll be quite often a disproportionate amount of hamsters, so one team will have many more hamsters against the other. But the smaller team gives you better odds, and the hamsters, controlled by AI, will just keep running in one direction until they hit something. Then usually they'll turn to the right, but sometimes they'll hit multiple things and kind of keep turning right and spin around and go in a totally opposite direction. And when you click go on the race, let the chaos unfold and wait and watch and see just exactly who reaches the finish line. You as a player can do some minimal interaction with the hamster though, by clicking on the hamster, which can sometimes trigger it to turn and go in a different direction. So you can interfere with the race slightly to try and put the odds in your favour, but I do recommend just letting the chaos run loose for a few times just to enjoy the sheer madness of Hamster All-Stars. However, as you're spending 90% of your game time in the course creator, and that's really what you're building, this game lives and dies on that aspect of the game as much, if not more, than the actual racing aspect. The course builder is quite intuitive at the beginning, before it starts to get a little bit finicky towards the end. So as you build what I'm going to say is flat structures, so there's no gradient involved, there's no big jumps. You start to unlock tunnels, for example, or funnels, so you can have like all kinds of magical mystery like rat race tours going on, and that's all well and good. And then it starts to become almost pinball like, because you can put in bumpers that can be circular or triangle, and you can really try and rearrange like a ricochet effect for all of these hamsters diving around. That can be incredibly satisfying and great fun to play and build. However, I did run into problems trying to understand and visualise height differences, because you can move tiles up and down so that you can have like steps or slopes going up and down, or jumps that jump you down or up towards various different platforms, depending on if you've got like booster pads and things like that. Now, where the finickiness comes in is that it's quite difficult to see whether or not your course can be validated until you've built everything in. So you'll need to run the race in practice mode, wait for the hamster to get to the jump. So if you've made a really convoluted track, sometimes you'll wait in a couple of minutes for the hamster to get there, to then do the jump, to realise that you've not quite lined things up properly. And largely that was because you're looking at your track from fixed camera angles. So they're always slightly diagonal, and so sometimes you don't realise that you've not quite lined up things perfectly on the grid formats, because everything is blocked by grid in this game. And so if you've misaligned something, you'll know about it when you get into practice mode, but you're just wasting time. And the more complicated I was making my courses, the more this started to come up. So whilst I was busy looking around on Steam and seeing the wonderful stuff that various people have created over the couple of years that this game's been out, and more kudos to them for being able to do it and do it well, I found that particularly when I used tunnels and funnels, my tracks would struggle to become validated because they don't line up nicely with the grid block format of all of the platforms. And when I added in some gradient as well, I'd really struggle sometimes to get some of my levels validated. And so I ended up making quite flat, plain levels, which then diminished my fun that I had with Hamster All-Stars. So, I would call Hamster All-Stars a rough gem. I think there's quite a lot of fun to be had here. I did struggle with that perspective issue, trying to build levels and get them all lined up quite nicely. So I was making either chunky levels or very flat levels as a result. And so if you're not having that perspective issue when you look at this game and you're thinking, what the hell, Simon, shush, then probably bump the score up a little bit and you'll have more fun from it. And in particular, if you like sandbox games that are quite small so that you get to your endpoint and a creative solution relatively quickly, then I think Hamster All-Stars will be a game for you too. It's almost like Lemmings the Isometric Race, and that's no bad thing, but Hamster All-Stars is a little too rough around the edges for me to give it a wholehearted recommendation. Higher Plane Games is part of the Higher Plane Network, a completely independent media outlet supported by people like you. The goal is to create the best possible content that cultivates a richer indie scene for games as well as music and entertainment. To find out more and to get involved, visit patreon.com/higherplane-network. Your support makes all the difference, and in return you'll gain access to bonus content and downloads. Thank you for watching.